Hey, welcome to Real Talk, episode 76. I'm Todd, this is AJ, and we're back.
Yo, how y'all doing this evening?
I bet you they're doing pretty good, maybe. So we're excited to be here, 76 episodes, pretty cool. I think we're going to dive right in. What is Real Talk, in case you haven't watched or listened for your first time? I don't know how to talk, man. This is what it is. Real Talk's just an opportunity for two things. One is to give you a format to ask questions about God, life, the Bible, walking this whole thing out. What is it to be a Christian nowadays? Mm-hmm. And, man, up above or somewhere, if you're in the podcast world, I don't know how they access it, but you can go to your phone or your computer and go to www.theremnant.life. That's REMNANT.life/real, REAL -talk. If you click that, you go down to submit a question, hit submit, the button. It'll let you submit a question or topic completely anonymously because we want you guys to have a place to do that. We understand some questions are a little embarrassing to ask. So here's the deal. We like to call it the disclaimer. What's the disclaimer? We're not God. Nope. We're doing the best we can, and we're going to give you the best answer we can, and it's a good starting point. As always, I know that I've had people say otherwise. Oh, you grumpy pastors, but if you're out there listening, of course we believe the Bible is the final authority. Yeah. So go check it out for yourself. The other thing that Real Talk is, it's an opportunity for you to hear us talk about our lives and how we kind of do the same thing that we're asking you to do, which is talk out the questions we have, the thoughts, etc. And that's what it is.
Hey, there you go.
So 76 episodes, man. Here we are.
Been a while.
It has been.
I was going to sing, I didn't.
It'd be funny to see on the video. If you are listening to the podcast for the first time, you may need to know that we are filming at the exact same time because we put this on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So, two different audiences sort of. Mm-hmm. And we can forget that at times.
100%.
So we assume people are seeing.
But they're not.
They're not. Yeah. They're seeing our facial expressions, etc. So bear with us. So I think we'll dive. We kind of mix it up. Sometimes we start with questions. Sometimes we don't. Mm-hmm. Let's just talk about life today.
Yeah, I'm into talk about life.
But we have a really good question I do want to get to today. Yeah. So stick around. It's going to be about women. Ladies, if you've ever felt like in Christianity you weren't, you were confused and you weren't, was God saying you're less than men and do you have to be quiet and all those kinds of things, We'll stick around because we're going to talk about that.
That's radio voice.
That's my radio voice. Yeah.
I knew it.
Anyway, man, how's your week been?
Well, the past 48, 50 so hours has been really interesting. So I had I went like over 30 hours without sleep. That was an interesting experience.
Pretty cool.
So what happened was we have early days on Sundays. So
long days.
Oh yes. So got up probably around like 11:30 or so, which to most people probably that's late. So got up at 11:30.
But if you're up till 4 or 5 a.m., that's not
exactly
late.
It's pretty normal. So got up around 11:30 and did our regular church activities before church. Mm-hmm. So got all that done. For those of you who are familiar with the Remnant and what we do on Sundays, we did church.
We have an evening service.
Exactly. Excuse me. And so then we play basketball afterwards, and that goes until about midnight usually. And then after that, sometimes we even eat food after that. So then that went until about 2, probably almost 3, 2:30 maybe. And then I was like, well, I got some more stuff to do. So I got some work done, and that put me at around like 5. So I was sitting there at 5 a.m. going, oh man, if I fall asleep, I'm not going to be able to get up for work. Yeah. So I have another part-time job at the local shoe store, and
yeah.
And so I was opening, and so that started at like had to be there like 9:15. So I was like, that leaves me 4 hours. So I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna power through. So I just didn't sleep, and I worked from 9:15 to 7:15. So that was pushing over 30 hours, and I finally got off work, and then when I got off work, I was like, oh, apparently there's a tornado warning. So I'm standing out there, and I'm looking at the sky, and I walked out of the store just in time to see this, like, it was getting, like, I saw that storm front coming, I was like, wow, the wind started whipping around a little bit, I was like, ooh, this might get real. Pretty sure I saw a funnel cloud up there. Yeah. Going across the parking lot. It was intense.
They said, man, it was a warning, so I think that, yeah.
So that happened. Finally got got in my car, drove. I actually went and got some food too because I'd barely eaten. Because I feel like it's funny because I'm pretty sure that's the longest I've ever stayed up in my life. I think I've made over 24 hours before, but that was past 30 hours. Like, I mean, it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
So I was like, man, I didn't really feel like eating anything. I was like, I should probably eat something. So I got some Arby's, beef and cheddars. So, and then when I finally laid down, I mean, I just was knocked, man. I don't know how long I slept for. I went from, I'm trying to remember what time it was. It was probably 9-ish. Yeah, 9 p.m. I woke up around like 5 or 6. No, not 5 or 6. 6 or 7 a.m. So what is that? That's 8 hours at least, which is normal. But
10, yeah. 10.
Oh, yeah, 10.
8 to 10.
8 to 10.
Depending on where you
Woke up for a little bit, went back to sleep for a little bit.
Which is good.
Oh, yeah, I
got
got some really solid sleep, and I feel pretty good today. So that was my first adventure of the week, was no sleep for over 30 hours. Don't want to ever do it again. It was terrible. I literally felt disoriented the whole day. Like, everything felt slow motion. I felt dizzy. I was like, what's happening? I couldn't speak. I felt like my voice was losing. I was like losing my voice. Like, I couldn't speak as well.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been pretty solid, man. You know, I'm very excited. We have so much crazy stuff going on here at the church, and like it's so surreal to have the updates that we do, because like sometimes, you know, we can hear about things and you don't really ever hear about it, but we're just constantly like moving right now.
Trying, yeah.
Yes, and it's just crazy. You know, I think we've talked to you guys before about, you know, getting, you know, softball field done, and like that's in the works, and it's getting real.
Yeah.
So that's exciting, and then even just, you know, other stuff we're trying to invest in, you know, like a studio. That's surreal to think about. What else? There's so much.
Yeah. So, like he's saying, all at one time, like we're trying.
Oh, yeah.
And listen, we didn't try. We had kind of pushed some of these back, and God opened the doors to some of them. So we're talking about a softball field, a new kids playground,
That's
a
right.
studio for all of our multimedia, which you are listening and watching right now.
That's
'cause
right.
That's a big part of what we do. Also, it's going to free up space in our current building.
Yes,
And then, also fixing concrete around our entrances.
Yes, so we don't
because
flood.
right now it floods and it's, you know, I always feel so terrible because, you know, especially ladies are coming in their nice shoes, and I'm like, please walk through the river to get into the building.
Please walk through the river.
So all of those things are like happening at once, and there's a lot of moving parts. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and it's really exciting.
Oh yeah.
And like, I like what you said. And, you know, you look at it individually, like, oh yeah, we're gonna do that, and then you're like, this is all gonna possibly be happening.
And the food truck.
Oh yeah, food truck's a huge one.
Yep, and the food truck.
We want to do a food truck because our plan is we want to get this food truck, and then we want to go have set hours and locations throughout the week, maybe 3 times a week, where we're going there and we give people food for free.
And
if they want to give donations, they can.
That's right.
But it's to serve areas of the community that may not be getting food and take it to them.
And we're talking like full on like decent meals, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. That part I'm not going to have a lot to do with the preparation of food, but we're not talking a bag of chips, you know.
Even though it'd be a free dilly bar.
Yeah, no, it's not going to be that. It's going to be actual food. Yeah, you are right. It's not going to be ice cream, just ice cream. So I don't know, man. That excites me. The idea that there could be a place in this community that the family says, you know, every Tuesday at 6, there's that truck.
Yep.
And, you know, if today I couldn't get dinner made, or maybe money's tight right now.
Yep.
I know my family growing up, you know, we weren't always wealthy, and we always had food. But I know friends of mine, and this is the truth, I knew people that did not. They might have ate one time a day. So giving that opportunity for people to have that meal, man. I hope it is. Yeah. So that's actually something I feel like in the midst of everything we've talked about that I'm really passionate about, and I'm excited for.
Yeah, man. We're just doing
see if it
our best
happens.
to serve the community. You know, that's one of the aspects of getting out there. You know.
Yeah, one of the pillars. Yeah.
Yes. So it's so cool. Other than that, I'm trying to think of anything else personally. What did I talk about last week? I think last week I was talking about how I struggle with. What was it? Dang it, I forgot. I know that my mind has felt pretty good. You know, it's either my best friend or my worst enemy.
I feel you.
Yeah, so this week in particular, it's been pretty good. You know, I've been able to keep mostly positive, I'd say. You know, besides your occasional, self-doubts or whatnot, but
Yeah.
for the most part, I've been doing pretty good. I know, I guess a quick self-reflection is that I still find myself doing a lot of that thinking like myself. Like I guess
Yeah.
I struggle to get that out verbally to people. I guess it can be hard because sometimes you can hear things so clearly in your head, but when you go to talk about it, it's just like it's so hard. Like it's different from what you heard in your head. I guess you're trying to like give people the like what's going on, and you try to talk about it. Like my mind says it perfectly, but I can't seem to get it out. So I guess I struggle with that. But other than that, man, I'm doing pretty good.
I think probably it confuses people sometimes because you are not necessarily a quiet person. Like you do well with sharing, and I feel like I might have the same problem. Sometimes people think we're sharing everything in our minds because we will talk and share, and it's like, nope, that's probably 40% of what's in there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's probably surprising people to hear because I think you're pretty open. There's always stuff, your mind's racing around.
Oh yeah, man. It races around so much that I can't even keep up with it half the time. So,
yeah, man, existence is weird. That could go a whole different
boy.
place.
Let's go.
Yeah,
I agree though. Existence is weird. But anyways, how's your week been?
pretty good. So this past Sunday, and I knew this was coming. I get so excited. They're talking about brain to mouth.
Yep.
Trying to think of which avenue to go. So, one of the taglines at the church that we go to is chosen by grace. That's our tagline. So, we are chosen by God's grace. God, we are only saved by His grace, through His grace, by His mercy, all that. So a lot of times, there are people. So we have been accused. I remember that. I'll always remember this part of the story now. Of like they take grace too far.
Yeah.
Which, as anyone knows, I've brought it up all the time. It just makes me so angry because how far is too far? I could go into the whole thing. So bear with me. So Sunday though, if someone were to, before I go into this, actually listen to what we teach, that is, we're not saying do whatever you want. And no, absolutely, God's grace is all encompassing, saves us. You can't lose it, all that. However, you have to understand your situation in order to get that grace. And people think we're not telling that, the religious people. We're not saying the dangers of sin, the fact that we're God's enemies, if we're not on his side, all those things. So this teaching this past week is what I would call hard teaching because it's a reminder as we went through and kind of talked about, here's your situation. Here's the situation of humanity without Jesus. Okay? It's not good.
Nope.
We're doomed.
Terrifying.
We're doomed.
Yep.
And so I went through that, and you end it with the grace and how then you appreciate grace when you understand the situation you're in. Yes. So you may not using the analogy again, you may not appreciate a parachute until you're on a plane that's going down. Then you're going to appreciate it. Or you may not appreciate water until you're dying in a desert, and then you're going to want that water, right? Yep. So that being said, even after that, there are people in this community. I shouldn't say that. I already did. There are people who, no matter what you do or say, and if you're a long-term or a long-time Real Talk listener or watcher, we talk about this a lot, and I'll talk about why. They always want to accuse people that talk about grace as these like false teachers. And it's the oddest thing. We were kind of talking about it this morning unintentionally because what I ended up doing was I ended up posting. I'm not a huge Facebook guy, my personal. I've tried to be a little more active lately. And I do it because we share stuff. Right. So I made a post just talking about the idea of, it's not preaching for man to tell people that we are saved through God's grace and that no matter how far you've went or, if you wander away, that he's still waiting to take you home. He's still waiting to save you and love you, and that you can't take grace too far. And we started talking about the idea. I had a person from college who commented on there, and it was pretty genuine. So if he's watching, I don't think it was mean. He just was like, make sure we're preaching the whole truth. But I think it's interesting that if I were to put up there, sin is going to lead to your death, you're going to die, and that's all I put, I don't think anyone would put on there, make sure you're preaching the whole truth. So we're very concerned. Seems like a lot of times Christians are very concerned about the whole truth, meaning you're doomed without Christ, which is all true. Sin is bad. Or maybe not even that. Sin is bad. we won't say anything about that, but we don't give the hope in the other side. So if I tell someone you're dead, you're going to die. When you die, you're going to be destroyed. You suck. And I don't leave the other half of it.
What's the point?
Well, it's not the whole truth either.
No.
The whole truth is you do need to understand that you're on the edge of a cliff. But you also have to understand what God did in his plan to save you.
Yes.
So, man, I just can't, people...
Truth and grace.
Yes, truth and grace. Jesus came truth and grace. You take away either one and you don't have the gospel.
Mm-mm.
And so this isn't about my friend who commented, because I took it as genuine, and once I made a response back, he was like, oh, thanks for explaining, whatever.
Sure.
And we should be on the lookout, because there are people out there that preach like, hey, God's grace means do whatever you want, whereas a real Christian won't do whatever they want. That's where I think people get mistaken with us sometimes is, I don't worry about whether or not the person, like in their heart, whether they believe or not. I care, but I can't control that. See, someone could be living a perfectly holy life on the outside to what I see and not know Jesus, and the vice versa. Someone could be struggling with addictions and, really fighting their flesh all the time, and maybe they are rebellious and they are saved. And so you can't go by that. So all we can do is continue to tell the truth. And certainly the people in community with you, we push each other, right? Scripture says that.
Yeah.
We push each other to be more like Jesus, because it does say, be holy as I am holy. So I feel like I'm all over the place. I hope I'm trying to explain. My point is, I think it's so fascinating why we're so afraid. And I wrote a blog post about this a long time ago, and I sort of got away from it, is we have the fear of grace. In Christianity as a whole, I think there's kind of two sides. And I do, pendulum. And one of them is like this fear of grace. And I don't understand it. I think we're so afraid to preach a false gospel that we still don't end up preaching the whole gospel. So we're so afraid that people will walk away thinking that they aren't to reject their sinful nature, that we're afraid to tell them that God meets them where they're at and isn't going to leave them, and that you can't out-sin grace, once you put your faith in Christ. Now, that is all through Jesus. On your own, it doesn't matter. You can't just be like, whatever.
Yep.
But it's kind of like I said this the other day. If apples are the good works and the outward appearance and all those things, a tree doesn't grow apples so that it becomes an apple tree. A tree grows apples if it's an apple tree. A Christian doesn't do good works to be saved and be a Christian. A Christian does good works because he is a Christian. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So I'm always fascinated. And, there's pastors in this community. I don't ever want to seem like I don't like pastors. But unfortunately, a lot of the good ones are the ones that I think are doing these amazing things. You don't hear from them. It's kind of like in society. You only hear about the loud minority, right? You hear about the not race, the loud minority people complaining you hear about more than the people, because we live in that society where we've talked about this before, where we're taught to share the negative things in life, but not the positive. So you hear the negativity a lot. So there's people, I just cannot stand passive aggressiveness. And social media lends itself to that, where people can passive aggressively say things. So sometimes people come to me and go, Pastor so-and-so, I think he was talking about our church or talking about you. And I'm like, well, first of all, if he was or wasn't, we don't know that. I'm not going to assume he is. Right. And even if he is, if he doesn't have the guts to come and talk to me, I don't care. Does that make sense? 100%. So all of this, you're like, Todd, how's your life? It's just sometimes I'm struck by that. I wish that as Christians, certainly we should push each other. The church should be pushed to be everything it is. Certainly we should be on the lookout for wolves in sheep's clothing. There are false teachers who are out for bad things, money, and all those kinds of things. Sure. However, I really wish we would spend time looking at other churches and going, man, look how beautiful what they're doing is. Man, look how cool God's using that congregation to do X, Y, Z in the kingdom. It's kind of like we're brothers, and I'm seeing you over there really working. Everybody should be working with the poor, but you're really doing stuff for the poor. And this place is going over to the drug addicts, and this place is serving the elderly, and that would be the way it is. And instead it's like, oh my gosh, he's over there hanging out with the drug dealers. He's clearly a false teacher. It's like, well, how are they going to hear about Jesus? You think they're just going to walk through your church doors? Sometimes they do, but sometimes they don't.
Nope. You gotta go get them.
So I don't know. Fun Turn Clint, is this making sense if you're just listening from the outside without context? I'm trying to give context to you guys. So, I'm sorry that we talk about this a lot, but it seems to be, I think there's certain places in the country where the church church with a capital C, the big church, is dealing more with the prosperity type gospel.
Sure.
We're not going to tell you truth. We're not going to tell you that sin is wrong. We're not going to do any of those kinds of things. But I think sometimes in our area, not all of them clearly, but man, there's also this legalistic kind of, I don't know, man. I don't want to say hateful, but almost hateful kind of spirit that's constantly looking to point out all the failings.
Yeah.
And I just think sometimes and it can make me question things for myself, because this is where I'm at. I do take anything seriously. I always try to examine my heart, examine scripture, examine my teachings, all that, to make sure that I'm doing right. Because it is a heavy thing to teach and preach. And even the things we're doing on Real Talk, we're trying to give answers. Do we give perfect answers all the time? No. And if you're looking for like a solid teaching on something, you're not going to get it at Real Talk. We're trying to just chop it up and open the door and get our minds thinking. Go to church and get to a solid Bible-based teacher. But just because a pastor or preacher isn't preaching in your style or reaching the same people as you doesn't mean he's a false teacher.
Yep. And
I'm telling you right now, the Bible says that, don't bring an accusation against an elder unless 2 or 3. And I think that even applies to other people, and man, I don't know. Does this make sense?
Yeah, man.
So I guess, like, what am I thinking? I want to wrap that up because it's unfair to tell you. I think with all that, I'm not even sad or mad or anything. It's just interesting. You and I were kind of talking about it earlier this morning. It's just an interesting thing how much time we spend as believers, all of us, including all of us, tearing each other up sometimes or looking for that.
I agree, man. I think it's weird because I'm still a newer Christian. Like I haven't been a Christian my whole life. I've been a Christian for 4 years. I think 4. Seriously a Christian for probably closer to 2 now. I got it then. I didn't fully get it then. Now I do. So really, I'm looking at, when I really got it, it's only been a couple of years. So, from 23 to now, it's when I've been really like, okay, Jesus, I get what you're saying. I get it. So in the 2 years that I've been, taking it for, seriously, there is just an odd tension. I know, like you said, we've talked about this a lot. Like, Pete, for some reason, other churches, we just don't mesh well. It's really weird.
But that's the thing. Not like we paint a picture, and I do want to stop. It's not all of them. When I look at it, it's just these few people. Like, we were just talking about. So this softball field's kind of a partnership. It's sort of becoming a partnership with a lot of different churches.
Which is amazing.
We just had a church reach out to us, a congregation. When we say church, we mean a congregation of people, right?
Yeah.
And they're like, we really want to play softball with you guys ahead of time. We just want to keep those relationships strong. So there's a lot of cool things happening.
Definitely a lot of cool
But it's like there are some, and it's like, man, all they want to do is just sit. Like, man, we don't have time for that. So I agree with you. I just want to clarify, we're not saying every church. There's so much beautiful things.
Yeah, thanks for clarifying.
No, it's not your fault. Unfortunately, I know some of the people. And they're like, oh, look what they're saying. We're not saying that.
Yeah. So, there is, like you said, those certain churches that for some reason just feel you just can't mesh.
And you can't please them.
No. So, but there is cool things. Like you said, I wanted to bring it up because I think it's super cool. I've been seeing banners around for this Focus.
I think that is cool. Yeah.
Right. I don't know who all the churches that are involved in it, but I think it's super cool that they're coming together. And
I think they approached us about it. I think it didn't happen because of timing. Like our guy that's supposed to reach out, I don't know if he did.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's awesome. That's working together.
Absolutely. That's so cool. And I think that's such an awesome thing to do for the community and bring people in. What an awesome thing.
Yeah.
We don't see. I want more stuff like that to happen.
Yeah, it's hard to do. Yeah. It is hard to do, even logistically. You think about just in our church how hard it is sometimes to get all the things done. Yeah. Now you're adding in other schedules, and so I think whenever a community of believers can pull something like that off, it's pretty amazing.
Oh, it's special.
And I wish we could talk more about those types of things than the negative. So there was a pastor from one of the bigger churches in town, talk about some positives, who stopped by. I think he's one. It's a long story. Anyway, I think that's what he was doing. He was stopping and kind of invited us to be part of that. I wasn't there when they talked, but he just threw out some comments. Hey, we want to invite you guys. Your worship team's unbelievable. Your pastor's got really solid doctrine. I just wanted you guys, and it's like, what a cool thing, man. Like this church that he's at is friggin' huge, right? And he stops by. He actually visited us before. This is the guy, I won't say who he is, but came to our service. We didn't know who he was, and he first came to community. It's like that guy took the time to come here and make a conclusion based on what he saw and heard, and not just sitting on the outside. And I respect the crap out of that. Sorry for the word crap, but I do. Right? I respect that because I wish that would happen more often.
It's so cool.
Yeah, and I have nothing but positive feelings for this guy, and it's just rare. And when you see it, it's unfortunate. Maybe it isn't rare, but it's rare for them to reach out and do encouragement. And he has really impacted me. I'd love to give him a shout out, but I don't know, But boy, he, like I said, one of the bigger churches in this entire community, maybe the biggest, I don't know, as far as size of the building and the property. To be able to come to and encourage like that, that's pretty amazing. Absolutely. And especially part of an established denomination, whereas we're non-denominational. It's just, that's the stuff that makes me go, that's so cool. And like now, you feel like you got a brother.
That's what. Yeah, you get the sense of the body.
Yeah. So, man, but you just don't. Instead, it's just you say passive-aggressive things, and you don't go talk to people. If I had a real concern with someone in this community preaching something crazy, right? I got two options. One, I have to trust that the body of Christians within that church are going to do what the Bible says and challenge those teachings. Well, if I have an even bigger concern, why not go talk to them?
Yep.
I have to assume that they're a believer, and the Bible talks about that. Go and confront them in a loving way.
It's like Paul coming to
me. And so it's just, that doesn't happen. So anyway, how did that affect my week and stuff? Not anything big. Sometimes I'm always like, all right, Lord. It's funny that happened this time after I had when I preached a really hard one that focused more on the scary side, for lack of a better word. But man, I'll tell you what, I never want to, sometimes I do think churches glorify sin. And what I mean by that is that's all we talk about.
Yep.
Instead of talking about hope and change and growth and sanctification and all these things, becoming more like God, the work the Spirit's doing inside of us. Regardless of me and you, yes, we have things that we add to that, but He's started that good work, right? And He's promised to finish that good work in us. So does that make sense?
Absolutely, man. I think that's good stuff,
So I guess all around, shout out to the people out there, man, to the I'm going to say this in case I ever watch, pastors, ministry leaders. If you're out there and you're doing it and you're serving the community and you're loving people and you're trying to look at the bigger body, I want you to know, hey, hold tight. You're not alone.
That's right.
And you're going to be criticized. I bet you already have. And people are, within your own congregation. And then outside of that, on top of it, people looking to criticize you for every decision. And just hold tight and keep doing the good work and finish the race, because you're not alone. We love you and we appreciate you, even if we don't know you. And if you ever need encouragement and you happen to watch this, shoot us a message, because we love to encourage and support you. And if you're one of those guys right now, teachers, pastors, church members from other places that spend the majority of your time criticizing and tearing down, I just encourage you to go read and pray and ask yourself, is that really how you should be spending your time? Because I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so either.
There's too many people out there dying that need the hope of Jesus Christ, and we should probably be focusing on that more than ripping each other apart. Just a thought.
Amen.
So, other than that, though, man, like you said,
PSA right there. Let's go.
It's been a pretty decent week. That's it. I mean, there's more I could talk about, but as far as my own life, back still like comes and goes. And shout out to Dr. J. Good work on my back. He ain't watching this, but if he did, I want to give him a shout out. So
absolutely, man.
That's it, man. The world's still crazy. A lot of crazy stuff happening. I think it's going to get crazier and crazier all the way till election day.
Trying to think of the craziest. I saw.
It's like everything around us is just, there's like this delirium. Everything's delirious, like just crazy. We're like everybody's delirious with like fear and anger and
I saw. I know. When the day it happened. Funny. I think it happened actually Tuesday of last week was when that explosion happened.
Oh, yeah.
Was it Lebanon, I think I
Dude,
said?
I heard the entire government, I don't know if this is true, the entire government of Lebanon stepped down.
Wow.
After corruption and all that kind of stuff. I need to look it up right now. But the entire government.
That's wild, man. Yeah, I know that happened. And then I also saw that there was another explosion, but it was here in America somewhere.
Oh, I heard about this too.
Was it Baltimore? I think it was Baltimore. There was an explosion. I didn't read enough into it to see like what exactly happened. I just saw that there was some sort of explosion. It killed a couple people and it did some damage.
Yeah, the Lebanese prime minister and his cabinet and government stepped down amid mounting pressure from protesters demanding accountability for an explosion that killed more than 150 people. Man. I wonder how that works as far as who's leading now.
All that? Yeah. Who knows?
So, what a wild time, man.
Oh yeah. I haven't really been keeping up with that, but that's wild. I didn't know that happened.
Mm-hmm.
I just know that it was like 7,000 tons of what is it called?
Debris?
No,
the force?
Yes.
Wow.
It was like was it called nitrate?
I have no idea.
I don't remember.
So it was a set-up bomb, like set off, or did they still come out yet?
Here's the weird part, is they said that, so there were, 7,000 tons. Now, whatever this stuff is, I don't remember the exact name of it. That same stuff was used, do you remember, it was some bombing, was it Philadelphia? Or was there was some, it took out a couple buildings.
Oklahoma City?
It might have been Oklahoma City. It was one of those where people like put it in a van.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So it was the same substance used, and they only used a couple pounds, and it knocked over, like it took a significant damage in that building. Well, there was 7,000 tons.
Oh, so clearly this was...
in a warehouse. They said it was unattended for 6 years. Weird. Yes, that's what I saw.
So that's what I'm saying, man. It's wild.
So was it a bomb? I'm not saying it was a bomb, but 7,000 tons in a warehouse for 6 years, who knows?
That's why it's even more important to focus on the good stuff, man,
Yes.
out there in life, you know?
It's scary.
When you see good stuff and people doing really amazing things, it's pretty incredible.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, it's very, very focused on the negative.
Yeah, it is. You wonder if that's human nature. You know, we were just talking about even in the church, like we just have a tendency. The sin. That's a good way to put it. But a lot of good stuff happening too. I wish we could hear more about it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make a personal effort. I'm saying this to you too and to our Real Talk family to start really looking for that stuff. Mm-hmm. Because the loud stuff's always going to be the negative. I want to try to look through the haze, right, of that negativity and see those gems, man, and that light, because it's there. And I wonder if I did that for a week or two, if it would change my own feelings about things.
Huh.
You know?
That's interesting. Never thought about that like that way.
Yeah, because I don't know sure that, because I'm probably naturally pessimistic in the sense of like mistrusting at times. And so you hear things, you're like, yeah, here we go again. This is the world. You know?
Right. That's interesting. It's a good idea.
A lot of stuff going on, man. A lot of good stuff too, though. You remember when John Krasinski stole our idea for Good News?
Absolutely, and then sold it.
Yeah. Hey, who did he sell it to again?
Like NBC or something like that.
John.
Yep.
Hey.
So once again, you can add it to the list that you had yourself another at least.
You know this was real. We said this before that came out.
100%.
Wait, now did he put his up first? Yeah. But it was even called. Ours was going to be called The Good News. Yep. Play on words. Mm-hmm. Anyway, long story short, great minds think alike. Nice job, John. The Office is awesome.
Yeah, that's right. You ever watch this? We love you. So
Jim Halpert. Old Jim Halpert. All right. Well, I guess we can dive into a question.
Sure.
It's me just breathing. All right. Here is our question, anonymously asked, that you guys could ask too at www.theremnant.life/real-talk.
Boom.
Let me start this off by stating that I'm a woman. This is a passage of scripture that confuses me and was wondering your opinions on it. The first part I take to mean that we shouldn't be so obsessed with looking good when kindness and love are of more importance. It doesn't matter if you're beautiful, if your heart and love for others is lacking and ugly. It's the parts after this section that can tend to make me feel like Paul is saying that women are less than men. I must conclude when I think of the character of God that I'm not understanding correctly. Is it that women shouldn't train up young men and that their fathers should? Didn't Adam get deceived as well and not lead Eve? What if a woman can't have children? Can she then not be, quote, saved? My best guess is that it's saying that she'll be able to get through the pain of childbirth if she's living as she should, but I just feel very confused. I want to be a woman of God in these types of I want to be a woman of God, but these types of verses can cause me to feel like I have nothing to offer when any man is involved, and that feels sad. I don't know if any of this makes sense, but I thought it might be a good subject to get your opinions on. Also, if the wording was different and this was about men, would you men feel like I do as a woman, or is it just a hard issue I'm having within myself? Wow. The specific section they're talking about is 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 9 through 15. And I'll go ahead and read that real quick just so everyone's on the same page. This is Paul, who sent a letter to Timothy, who he had left in charge of a church and kind of leading. He says, also, let me start with verse 8 because I think that's important in context. He says, therefore I want the men, he's beginning to give them instructions on how to do church services. Yeah. Therefore I want the men in every place to pray, lifting up holy hands without anger or argument. It's interesting considering what we just talked about. And this is the verse that this young lady shared. Also, the women are to dress themselves in modest clothing, with decency and good sense, not with elaborate hairstyles, gold, pearls, or expensive apparel, but with good works, as is proper for women who affirm that they worship God. A woman should learn in silence with full submission. I do not allow a woman to teach or to have authority over a man. Instead, she is to be silent. For Adam was created first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived, but the woman was deceived and transgressed. But she will be saved through childbearing if she continues in faith, love, and holiness with good sense. And then he goes on to talk about the traits of an elder in the church, like a leader. Yeah. So this is a good question because I think, what does that mean? Well, here's the thing. First off, we have to remember that Paul and Jesus were not sexist at all. We have to remember the context of the culture. In that culture, women were considered inferior in the biblical times culture. It was fully women were inferior to men. That's the way the culture acted. They didn't have as many rights. And Jesus comes along and shocks the whole system and says, you are to love each other, you're to love women, you love men, you are to not even, back then you could divorce your wife if you wanted, just write her a note and he's saying, no, you don't get it. You can't just leave her. All these kinds of things. He completely flipped the script. Which is amazing. And called women walked with him, which would have been shocking. So we have to understand it through that lens. So even addressing women that Paul does, and he does that in many of his writings, was pretty countercultural. Yeah. Called women to lead and all those kinds of things. So we need to understand that. However, Paul also and Jesus recognized that doesn't mean that there isn't a designed order to things. Right? That God didn't create a distinction between men and women. And just because Jesus came and sanctified us and made us holy, all that did, we always talk it this way. It kind of takes it, the idea is to restore things to the way they were before the fall, before sin entered. But even then, God had ordained that men were to be the leaders of the home in particular. Now, before we go on, ladies, listen, if you're listening, you got to understand that roles do not equate with importance or do not equate with value. So, for instance, is the manager at a fast food restaurant any more important to the structure of the restaurant than the line cook? No. If you don't have the line cook, you don't get food. The manager's just sitting around. But if you don't have a manager, someone who's there to help give direction, then you'd have chaos. Right. God is not a God of chaos, but a God of order. So he created this system, right? Before we even go on, so husbands and wives, if you go look at the actual teaching, yes, a wife is to submit to a husband, but a husband is to love the wife as Christ loves the church. So a man who loves his wife as Christ loves the church is not going to be domineering. He's not going to be threatening. He's going to, lead in love and include and value that person because she's created in the image of God. That's right. I want to make sure we say all that. The women were created to be a helpmeet for men, meet all needs. And Paul also knew that if you flip that, and God does too, if you flip the order of things and you damage the structure of the family unit, it's disastrous. Disastrous
Absolutely.
for families. It's disastrous for society. You can see that. We see it nowadays. So apparently there were people coming into the church, there's some context here, who were teaching that the male authority in the church and home and the woman's childbearing roles were curses for sin. Meaning, because that was a curse for sin, that the only reason that men were to lead and women were to do childbirth and all that stuff was because of the curse, right? Because mankind sinned, now women, you will have children. That's a curse, actually. To have a child is a curse. To go through childbearing is a curse. The only reason that men are to be the leaders of the home and the church is because that's part of the curse. And since Jesus came and healed us from the curse, you see the twisting of the truth, then those two things don't have to happen anymore. Women don't need to have children. Men don't need to lead. But here's the problem with that. It was men were called to lead and women were going to be having children before the fall.
Yeah.
Like we were going to subdue and multiply before the curse, right? God created us to do that. So it can't be that having children and men leading are bad.
Right.
So Paul was speaking to that. He's saying, whoa, you're missing it. The divine order of things, the way God intended, has nothing to do with that. It's the way the order of things between men and women and even childbirth, that is not part of the curse, that's part of creation. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Does it? Am I losing you?
No, that makes sense to me.
So
There's a difference.
in this section, he's instead saying, no. Men are supposed to lead. That's not part of the curse in the church. And they're not to, remember, this is ancient talking, so we have to look at this through the lens of all the Bible. He clearly isn't saying women are inferior to men.
Right.
He can't be. How do we know that? Because we look at the whole gospel. What he is saying is the woman is not going to run the church. She's not going to run the home. That's not the way it's supposed to be.
That's right.
Period. Okay?
I like what you said. That there's a difference between the creation and the curse.
And the curse, yeah. And
he
also is saying, he's actually kind of saying the opposite. He's saying, quit believing that having a baby is part of the curse, and understand that having a baby, the pain that comes with childbirth is part of the curse.
That's right, because he put pain in there.
Yeah, so pain is part of the curse. The other part of the curse is not male leadership, it's chauvinistic, domineering male leadership is the curse. Makes sense? So Paul was making sure they understood, listen, it's the bad things that comes with those that were part of the curse.
Yep.
Not the male leadership, negative male leadership. Not childbirth, the pain in childbirth. So Paul's saying, no. And so when he says work out your salvation with it, right? She'll be saved through childbearing, it's that whole mindset. It's not about she's actually going to be saved in the sense of like salvation, but she's going to like understand that and work through that. And like it's all part of that process.
Right.
Does that make sense? Of life.
Dude.
So kind of how you and I can look around and go, man, life sucks. Where'd that come from?
Yep.
Like, why is it like that? And then we remember that it wasn't supposed to be this way from the beginning.
Yep.
Does that make it's fun turn, Clint? Did I get lost, or is that a pretty good explanation?
There's a separation between the creation and the curse.
Yes.
And people tend to kind of blend that together, and then so then they can think, like you said, all the things that are bad. That's just how it's supposed to be.
It's kind of like saying sex is bad because sex outside of marriage is bad.
Exactly.
Sex is not bad; it was created.
Right. Yep.
So it's just through his
is that you want it even though you're not married.
Yeah. So he just wanted to make sure that when we're saved, we're actually being sort of put back into our pre-fall state. Well, what's the pre-fall state? Men still lead in love. That's the structure. Guys, women, before you get all mad, again, there are a lot of wives out there smarter than their husbands. But if all you guys are doing is arguing on direction of your family and what you do, the way you're never going to get anywhere. So I like to think that a husband and wife should always make decisions to be a team together. But what if it comes down to a moment where it's left or right? There is no option of in between. How do you settle that dispute? Well, God's already said it. Yep. You are to, and it's not even about trusting your husband in that moment. It's about trusting God. So, that's good. And the same with childbirth, people were saying, don't have kids, part of the curse. No, that's the beauty. Childbirth's interesting because even though sin came in and tried to ruin it, when that baby comes out, you still see the beauty.
Oh, 100%.
Right? So all that pain doesn't rob us of the beauty of that life that's created.
Amen.
I hope that makes sense. Great question.
Oh, absolutely.
Such a great question.
Yes, it's awesome.
So, and I think you're right on, whoever wrote this question, about the first part, about women who dress themselves in modest clothing, because that's the other side of it. Apparently, women were coming in just showing everything,
Right.
trying to draw attention to themselves purely through their dress and the wealth. And he was essentially saying, listen, your beauty is not just in that.
Yep.
You don't come in trying to distract everyone, and it doesn't mean you can't look good, ladies. It's okay to look good.
Right.
So I think you're right on with that. But see, this is what I love, man. That is such a great question, because if you read that and we don't think through all of it together and talk it out,
Sure.
you could be confused.
Absolutely.
So it's sort of like if I came in and saw women dominating every man in this church, I might not come in and go, I'm not going to take the whole time to go, listen, I don't you can't teach him. I would come in and be like, listen, hey, you're not going to dominate this place. You're not going to be teaching and subjugating all the men around here. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, and it's all affirming God's design.
I like that.
Sorry for all the chatting, guys. We didn't get to, I hate when those kind of things come. I didn't want to put all that on you to speak into, though.
I was more than happy to listen.
I know, I just feel bad because honestly, guys, sometimes I listen to Real Talk and get tired of my own voice.
Oh, whatever.
I'm serious.
Stop that.
But I hope that answered your question. Please keep asking them.
Yeah,
What a
great question.
great question. Yeah.
Nice. No, you definitely answered that way better than I could have. So I'd rather you answer that stuff. So
Yeah, thanks. Well, you got anything else?
other than I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. For those of you who get tired of seeing our faces, you can listen to it on the podcast. We talked about that earlier. Podcast, it's available everywhere. So Pandora, iHeartRadio.
What do they type in for that?
That's going to be Real Talk Web Series. That is REAL for real. Other than that, thank you guys so much for watching. Keep asking questions. We love you.
He pretty much said it. Do us one other favor, guys. Watch this. Share it. It's called engagement. The more engagement we get, which means comments, likes, and shares, the more the analytics of Facebook put it out there for other people to see.
That's right.
So the more engagement, kind of the more popular it appears through all those things, through comments, shares, and likes, the more they put it out there for other people to discover. And we still believe, do we think every episode's perfect? No, but we think that we've seen that it's impacted people's lives.
Yes, we have.
So please join us and take the time to do that, to like, share, comment even, because again, that's all part of it. And we love to hear your thoughts.
We do.
So yeah, what are your guys' thoughts on kind of the state of things lately? How are you feeling? Do you feel anxious? Are you able to see the good and stuff lately? I know it can be hard sometimes, but like, share, comment, all that good stuff. And when you share, if you put a little blurb at the top, kind of letting people know what you liked about it, I think that gets people more involved too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So other than that, I think that's about it. If you haven't liked our page and you're on Facebook watching, please go to that Remnant Church up there and then go like and follow. Same thing. And if you're listening on the podcast, guys, we love you so much. We're so thankful for you. You can share the podcast too. That would really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Or spread the word for people to download and listen. And we want to dialogue with you as well. Same thing at the link www.theremnant.life/real-talk. Is it possible to put that link on our description?
It's in there.
Oh, perfect. So just
Every
go to the
episode.
description.
Yep.
Other than that, I think that's about it. We hope you guys have a great day, and truly, God bless you.